Well, with the recent closure of Liddell power station, our electricity system is on a knife's edge. The government can't seem to realise that if you shut something down, you need an equal alternative to replace it. Joining us now is Nationals MP Keith Pitt. Keith, great to see you as always. Now, how serious is our energy situation here?
Well, it's a significant problem now, particularly because people can't afford to pay their bills is the main one. But very, very soon, coming to a house near you, will be blackouts and instability. There's an international standard that says you should never have more than 10% of your electricity generation come from intermittent sources like wind or solar, because it affects your ability to regulate voltage, frequency control, system strength, and to back it up costs enormous amounts of money. Well, we're there right now, particularly if Eraring closes.
Rita.
And we've also got a gas shortage. We're hearing about a looming gas shortage that's going to be impacting millions of Australians. How could this be? We are sitting on decades, if not hundreds of years of reserve.
Oh, you're spot on. The main reason you've got a gas shortage is because Victoria simply hasn't developed any. They've had a moratorium on development for about 10 years. And guess what? Those sources eventually run out. If you don't replace them, you run out of gas. And the idea that you can send your gas from the Beetaloo Basin or from Queensland all the way to Melbourne for the same price on infrastructure that doesn't exist, well, it's just, you can't design these things on a feeling, right? And it is the people of Victoria that will cop it in the neck and cop it first.
Now, Keith, I've got to get to the really serious issue here, and that is that I can't take my eyes off the thongs over your left shoulder there. They're the best set of thongs that I've seen in a while, and I'd love a pair of those thongs. They're great. We're learning that they've got some extraordinary number of debt collectors wandering around after people who can't afford to pay their bills. Now, this is a really serious issue. We've seen this before in Europe, where if you make electricity so expensive people can't pay for it, they have to choose between heating and eating, which is what was happening in Europe over the winter. How serious is this in Queensland with these debt collectors chasing people who can't afford their electricity bills? It's insane.
Well, don't forget in Europe, they put up hundreds of billions of euros in subsidies so that people can try and pay their gas and power bills. Yeah. They can keep people employed and keep manufacturing operational. I'll guarantee you the debt collectors aren't running around in thongs like that, mate. I'm happy to give them to you. They've never been worn. But there are the reports are 12,000 customers have debt collectors knocking on their doors in the March quarter. Can you imagine how bad that is now after another 3 months of this federal Labor government? Prices are through the roof. In Queensland, the Labor government here has been profiteering for years, and now they just put up the price for regional Queenslanders by 26-27%. I don't understand how they think people can pay, and it all goes into Treasury's coffers in Queensland. So people are making a lot of money through profiteering. They're going to short the market. If you take Eraring out in 2025, which is not very far away, we're going to have some significant problems with supply, and that will drive up the price even further.
James.
Keith, overseas we're seeing nations back away from some of their renewable targets. Sweden, for instance, has started to back away from that. We saw in Germany they destroyed a wind turbine farm to access the coal underneath it. There's a reliance on nuclear power overseas, and those countries that are committed to renewables, they're importing energy from other countries. Australia doesn't have that luxury. My question to you is, why is this government so intent on ignoring what's happening overseas and pushing ahead as if those lessons don't apply to us?
Well, the federal Labor government are idealists. And I try and say Chris Bowen's name in every interview because I know it lands on his desk in the media clips. So Chris Bowen's position is this fantasy. It's an absolute fantasy. We are an island. We can't go to France for their nuclear power. We can't tap into some other country for their supply. There is only what we do here. We're just 25 million people, or a little bit more now, in a very, very large country that is distributed all over the place. The idea that we can rely on others, that just won't work. And yet, as you've said, in Germany, they've only just closed the nuclear plants that are at end of life. They've had to put coal back on because they've lost Russian gas. The gas price is through the absolute roof and they can't pay. Sweden's finally seen some sense, would be my view. What they've done is quite sensible. So they're going to move to nuclear because it works. It works.
Well, it does, and hopefully we'll see the coalition at some point walk away from net zero. It's just very difficult to argue these points when you've kind of signed up to the same overall philosophy. But on that, and the leadership of the Nationals, last week we saw reports that you are just getting the knives ready and David Littleproud's in trouble. You or Barnaby are going to be mounting a leadership challenge. Do you back your leader 100%?
Oh, you're a very good journalist, Rita, and a very strong commentator. And I'm sure you've come across any number of my colleagues that I've rung and asked for their vote. They don't exist. I haven't called anybody. I'm not doing the numbers. I haven't rung one of them. And it's pretty straightforward. Our job is to be in government. Right? We are the business of being in government and implementing the policies of a Conservative party. And that is my focus. It's always been my focus. And looking after the people that I represent, their per capita income is like $34,000 or $35,000 a year. They can't afford a federal Labor government. They can't afford to buy a new battery-driven car because people would like them to feel better about themselves. They just can't pay. So I'll continue to focus on them, and that's what I'm doing, mate.
Keith, that was a brilliant answer. One would have thought you were a politician, the way you answered that. That's so superbly.
I'm a better electrician than politician.
Well, good. Well, you can possibly help us understand where I've got my suspicion that maybe it all came from a certain Gina Rinehart, but the Labor government is now saying, oh, we've got a bigger surplus than we ever thought we had. We've got billions and billions of dollars. All of that came from coal mining, didn't it? Does Chris Bowen understand and Jim Chalmers understand that every time they say how brilliant their surplus is, they're saying thank you to a coal miner, Gina Rinehart and others who export our fossil fuels to the rest of the world? Do they understand this, Keith?
Well, rule one of Jimbonomics is it's about a feeling. They want a budget to be a well-being budget and about feelings. Well, this is who they can thank. They can thank the hard-working men and women in the resources sector who've delivered record numbers, $460 billion. They can thank coal. Thank you, coal, $130 billion plus, biggest commodity export in the country. They can thank bracket creep and the taxpayer, because that's where the money is coming from. And the idea that they're not thanking the coalition for the very stable government that we delivered and a strong economy, unemployment rate under 4%, all of those things add up over a period of time. But it is rapidly coming to an end. Interest rates are up, inflation is up, cost of living is up, your dollar is worth less. And that is all on the back of a federal Labor government and their ideological decisions that they make, and that is not in Australia's interest.
Absolutely, which is why I, for one, want to see a coalition government back in power within the next 18 months. Keith Pitt, always great to chat to you. Thanks so much. And, yeah, I'll look out in the post for those thongs, mate.